What's up, guys? Born of Ragnarok here. As promised, this is the deck theory video. So, I guess to start off, let's talk about what the minimum requirements for building a deck are in Shardbugs. So, your deck must have a minimum of 60 cards. There's no maximum deck size. However, generally speaking, you're best off staying as close to 60 as possible. Every single card that you add that's over 60, it's really it has to have a really good reason to be in your deck. Otherwise, it's best to just cut it and keep the deck only to the minimum you need to win the game. So when I'm deck building, I like to go to Tabletop Simulator, pull out all the cards here. You could do it on the Shardbugs website. I've recently started using that as well. Um, However, old habits die hard, um, and I usually still do it on Tabletop Simulator, but you can come here to the Shardbugs website, shardbugstcg.com/deck builder, and you can start deck building from here. So let's say you were building a soul deck, you pick your avatar. If you want a different avatar, you can click on the variants, click on the other avatars here. But you confirm your avatar, and then it'll show you all the cards that you can legally add here. This one will also tell you, 60 card minimums. It'll keep you from, for example, Dave is a rare. You can only have 3 of him. So if I tried to have more than 3, it just doesn't let me. Um, but I visualize a little bit better on TTS. So for the purposes of this video, I'll be using TTS. The first thing you need to do is decide which alignment you're playing. Um, Once you have your alignment decided, you need to decide what is my win condition. What am I doing to win this game? Are you building a B deck that you want to swarm out a bunch of make a bunch of dust and then use that to make a bunch of locations and do a lot of things in a turn? Are you making an ants deck? Are you making what is the win condition of your deck? What does your deck do to win? So for example, let's um let's look at one of my old decks. Let's see. Stingers. This is the last Stinger deck I used from Season 2. So let's look at the deck. Now, the way that this deck was built, it was a control deck. So I wanted to use cards such as Magnifying Blast, Poison Gas, Venomous Assault, Downpour, Cloak Ghost to control the bugs that my opponent had on their field, with the intent that eventually they will just run out of gas, and obviously Mars won. Eventually they will just run out of cards and sputter out, and then I can play my bugs out and win the game. Now, why is it a Stinger deck? That is because the key the key piece of this deck is Meteor Mammoth. Now, if you're not familiar with Meteor Mammoth, it's a 4/4 that costs 5, devotes for 2, with aggro and venom. And the key part being that it gains +1 attack for other stingers on the field and +1 defense for other stingers in the hive. Now, I used to have more stingers, but I found that eventually you just really don't ever need Meteor Mammoth to be bigger than 9. Which if I have all 5 Red Hot Hornets in the hive, then uh, that already makes Meteor Mammoth a 4/9. Now, Red Hot Hornet has aggro and venom himself, so he can still be played out and be useful immediately. But with 3 health, he's a little bit more fragile. He dies in the Mars Mirror match, so he rarely ever saw too much play. Um, that was the main win condition. Now, other key parts to the deck. Desert Locust is your main ramp piece in Mars. And what is ramp? Ramp is you can put 1 bug in the hive for turn, and then you play out a bug and retreat it if it has aggro, and that way you technically played 2 dust for the turn. So Desert Locust also searches and replaces itself, so it's the main ramp piece. The other great combo with that is Fanatical Locust. That is 2 cost instead of 3 cost. It doesn't search itself, but it has aggro, so you can play it a turn earlier. And also, you can use it as a secondary win condition later, because this one gains +1 devotion when you play another stinger. Another hopper. So let's say you have all of them in your hive. and you're going to start going for the win. You play one out. The next turn you play another one out. Now instead of having one devotion, you have three. The next turn you play another one, you have 5, 7, 9, and then you start playing out your locusts. Um, it's just a really aggressive late game win condition. Um, and then you had other general good stuff. Renfaf, another late game closer. Bulldog Bully, that is a aggro 2 devoter. Not a not bad stats either. Rose Duelist is another control piece to destroy items, and it acts as dust until I need it. Honorable Centipede is a big body stomper that has 2 devotion. Tiger Beast is an aggro 2 devoter that gets +2 and stomp on the turn it's played from hand. These are all pieces that just generally worked around my win condition of just oppressing my opponent until they run out, and then I can just win. Cloak Ghost, I feel like everybody has kind of learned how valuable having a Cloak Ghost is. The fact that it can be paired with Mars Blast so that you have a 5 damage turn and then you make bounty is great. You can cycle it, so if they don't remove it immediately, you retreat it and then you can play it again from Hive. It's very, very strong. You must play it. Outpost Barricade I had for the mirror matches in particular, although it was generally good. Pay 2 to give +2 to everything on your field. So you could use that to keep your Cloak Ghost safe. You can use that to keep anything that has 2 or more health safe from a Mars Blast. So yeah. And now, I don't want to get too deep into what this deck does in particular, because this is not a video about this deck. It's a deck theory video. Now, I mentioned earlier that you don't want to have more than 60 cards. Now, why is that? The reason is that every card you add to the deck is 1 card less that you're going to see when you need it. So let's say I'm ever in a situation where I really need to see a Magnifying Blast. I only have 4 Magnifying Blasts in my deck. That means that I have a 1 in 15 chance of seeing that card. Every time it increases every time I draw and I haven't seen it, but still. Let's say after my first hand I've drawn 7 cards, there's 53 cards left in the deck, and I haven't seen a Magnifying Blast. That's a 4 in 53, and then 4 in 52. Every single card that's in the deck makes it harder for you to see the pieces that you need to see. So let's say I was like, oh, I want to have 3 Torrential Downpours instead, right? Now the deck would be at 61. That's 1 card harder for me to see whatever card it is that I'm trying to see in that exact moment. And that might not sound like a big deal. You have, when you shuffle, you kind of randomize the odds anyways. So, but the thing is, I don't need 3 Torrential Downpours in this deck. This card was really useful because ants were a very strong archetype in set 2, and they would just absolutely flood the board with ants faster than I could remove them. And then now I'm on the back foot because they could pair their ant tokens with Cosmic Crushers, do the Crusher Shuffle, and get a ton of devotion. So what did I do? Instead of just trying to kill them one by one, I just downpour, I bounce everything to the Hive, even if it hits my own things. Tokens can't live in the Hive and they would die anyways, and that took care of that. I don't need 3 Torrential Downpours for that, because realistically they're running 2. Even if they run a 3rd shovel, it's really unlikely for them to see all of their shovels, and even if they do, by the time they see the 3rd shovel, they're honestly already so far behind it doesn't matter. So you have to kind of decide what is important for you to have in your deck. What is your deck trying to do to win? I've seen a lot of people that will just be like, oh, this is a good card, I want to put it in there, but how is it fitting in? A great example of that let me see. For example, Wormbow Wagons. On paper, this is a phenomenal card. It's a 3/3, devotes for 2, it only costs 3, it's got focus, it gains +1 if it's equipped. It's a great card on paper. But if this card is not in a deck that lets it shine, and you're not advancing your win condition by playing this out, why is it in your deck? If you have a deck built around, let's say you have I don't know, you have a moth deck. You have a moth deck and you had a few slots left and you want to put Wormbo in. He's not helping you advance your win condition. He's not a moth. And not that you have to have a pure moth deck, but the deck that most likely your moths are not helping you advance this. You're most likely not running equipment in your moth deck to help Wormbo do anything worthwhile. So why include him? Um, that being said, it's not a matter of sticking to tribes specifically. As you saw, the Stingers had a lot of non-Stingers. There were only 9 Stingers in the Stinger deck. There were only 9 Stingers in the Stinger deck, as you can see. But that was enough. That was enough for the Stingers to do their thing, because that's what Stingers want to do. These other cards, these are called engine cards. These are cards that help you advance your board state to be able to use your win condition. This is an alternate win condition. It's not a Stinger, but I could win the game off of this card alone. It doesn't need any additional help to work. Um, these cards are support cards. They help me gain devotion quickly. They can attack. The point is they fill multiple roles. They're not the win condition on themselves, but they do advance the win condition. So when you're building your deck, you need to keep that in mind. How am I advancing my win condition? Now, set 3 has a much, much, much faster meta. Um, the let's see. Let's look at my first my first soul build. So I was thinking, much faster meta. Okay, with soul you gotta have your engine cards. My 3 woolly bears. Um, did I not have Wallace in this? Wow, that's crazy. All right, don't do what I did. Apparently, I didn't have Wallace in this version. Okay, let's look at a different one. That's a bad example. Um, da, da, da. Okay. So you have your engine cards, which are your woolly bears. That honestly, if you're playing a soul deck without woolly bear, I'm not sure what you're doing. Wallace, we can debate all day about whether you need that, but I think there's no reason to not run Wallace. You're always gonna need dust. You put it in the hive. It makes a yellow, and if you have extra dust, you just tap him last, and you're generally buffing your solar bugs without having to pay anything. It's really good. Humbringer. So what was the design intention behind this deck? It was to devote quickly. Humbringer's a 2 devoter that could be given aggro. Candy Stripe is a 1 drop that has 2 devotion. Um, Solarian Strider is basically another Candy Stripe. So I had cheap bugs in there that could devote for a lot, and then I had some additional removal that I've since cut down. I feel like the Antonio is a little too slow. Um, Curd, the idea was to make my bugs beefier. It's also a 3 devoter, so it put a lot of pressure in that sense. Astra would help me remove traits. So if they were going to static charge something later on, when I had the 4 dust up, I would be able to play this at quick speed. Painted Lady to search out woolly bears. A big body with Venom as a blocker and attacker. Big body 3 devoter. Some additional draw power. Fly Swatter was a defensive card. This is a defensive card. Um, so the idea was to just have sudden bursts of devotion, make my bugs stick to the board a lot. I found that this deck, through playtest, was a little too slow. The meta is very, very, very fast. This was too slow. I had to change a lot of this out. Um, but the idea behind the win condition is there. I was rarely ever seeing turns where I couldn't do anything because I always had a good balance. My my dust curve is pretty neutral. Like I'm not overly invested in expensive bugs. Um, I have enough draw power to keep up with the rate that I'm playing bugs. The, so I think with that you should have a pretty solid solid idea of where to begin. So kind of to recap, the steps are: pick your alignment, pick your win condition, build around that, stick as close to 60 cards as possible. Oh, another very important factor is the ratio of bugs to non-bugs. So what I mentioned earlier the about this card's dust cost. So not only are the cards in here not too expensive that I can't not play them, I also have 42 bugs. The golden ratio, from what I can see, everybody agree is 2/3. So you want to have 2/3 bugs in your deck. So if I'm running a 60 card deck, I want to have 40 bugs. I've seen people say even more. I've seen people say that they like having 45 bugs or 50 bugs. And generally speaking, the closer you can get uh, to 45, 50, the less likely you are to ever not have enough dust to do something. Because as you know, you can't put non-bugs in the hive for dust. Um, that being said, though, having too few actions can also be a hindrance, because you do want to have your other options, your actions, your relics, your locations. But yeah. So final recap: pick your alignment, pick your win condition. Try to stick to that win condition as best as possible. Try to stick to 60 cards. If you go over 60, you gotta have a really good reason to do so. And try to stay as close to the 2/3 ratio of bugs to non-bugs as possible. And I think with that, you guys should have enough information to start building decks. If you have any specific questions, any more advanced stuff, I plan to make 3 more videos covering each individual alignment and what they are particularly good at, and how to build decks for those. But this is just a general video for deck building. All right, let me know in the comments if you have any questions.